Hello, everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don. If you're watching this right now, that means you're here for major previews, where we look into the future and open our third eye into the solicitations of future comic book releases and pick the best, the brightest, the latest, and greatest and recommend them to you guys at home. Like I said, my name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and I would never do this alone. I'm here joined by.
It is I, Alex Garcia, aka The Cog. Merry Christmas, everybody. It is December, and we are covering major previews. What's going on?
Yes, in many cases, in many iterations of Santa Claus, his sack, if you will, has been bottomless, right? It's this idea that he can fit the world's toys in this bag. And we have a bag of sorts for you guys here today, where we'll be giving you the gift of some stellar comic book picks that'll be coming out this year in December. But I'm gonna relinquish uh this time over to the cog because that will be my gift for you this month. I
Thank you.
I'm a little broke, but this month,
Hey, hey, it's the thought. It's the thought that counts, sir.
always. I'm almost certain there's a Charles Xavier Rocks shirt that says it's the dot that counts.
That
Hey,
good idea.
merch, gang, gang.
There it is. Speaking of,
Speaking of merch, go ahead, Broski. What are you looking forward to on this month of December? We've talked in issues before or episodes before about how awesome of a time right now it is to be a comic book reader. But what is jingling your bells over there as
oh
far as
man,
December picks?
for me, it is the probably what I would say is probably the comic book of the year, and it just keeps giving, and it's a book that keeps giving even right on its cover that's right behind me. Ultimate Spider-Man number 12 by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto. This book, since it came out a year ago on a monthly basis, has been the book to read. I've mentioned a couple other ones that I've said that are just up there in stellar. You got Transformers, you've got even certain issues of the Energon universe as well as the Geiger universe. But the Ultimate Spider-Man, month to month, has been the book to read since the moment. I mean, the solicitation issue for this book is selling for like $10.
That's crazy.
That is how hot and how amazing this book has been. And
Yeah,
with issue number 12, because this book, what's great about it, it's just another one of those things that Jonathan Hickman has been doing there almost like for us unconsciously, is this book is like happening in real time. So when the book started, it was like late, it's supposed to take place in late winter, early spring, and
yeah,
literally this issue is taking place in Christmas,
right.
right? So a very merry Spider Christmas, where we have Peter acting strangely because of this wonderful time of the year, but he's also at the same time very worried. He's still learning these new powers. He's still in the midst of this new universe that's forming all around him. Because a pick that I know one of us is definitely going to talk about next, the Ultimate Universe, this new Ultimate Universe is literally a year old,
Yeah,
and we're about to have to kind of look back on it and go, well, what's good about it? What's bad about it? Not necessarily from a writing perspective, but literally, there is a doomsday clock going on in this universe, right? We're all
yeah,
waiting for, as you say, everybody's favorite sociopath to come out from his isolation, because that's why this ultimate universe exists.
right.
The maker, the ultimate psychopath, Reed Richards, is like in hiding, and he's got this plan of saying, look, I'm gonna go hide away and I'll be back, and when I come back, it's probably not going to be a good time.
Right.
And so everybody's kind of
You
waiting
guys
for
better
that
not have been
time.
up to anything while I was gone.
Right, right. And that's I'm just wondering, like, the Reed Richards is the genius, right? So is he prepared for this? Did he know this was going to happen?
Yeah,
Because the whole point of this universe is he's hiding, he's purposefully suppressing the superhero community. So in going to hiding, did he know the superhero community was going to get unlocked? Is he anticipating it? So what's it going to be like when he comes out? And everybody kind of knows, even those who are like in the Ultimates book, and even in this book, everybody kind of knows. Well, when he comes out, it's not going to be a good time. This
yeah,
this this person has locked down an entire planet and seemingly an entire universe. So to think that you're going to completely blindside this character, I can't imagine that's going to be the case. And so here we have Spider-Man, who's this older dad of a Spider-Man, who's obviously looking like, look, man, I gotta celebrate Christmas to some degree for my children.
Right.
But at the same
Well,
time, on the back of
they'll
his
disown
mind,
me.
at the
They'll
same time,
disown
in the
me if
back
I
of his
don't.
mind, has got to be, hey, what's gonna happen very soon when the Maker emerges? How is that
Yeah.
gonna affect this world? And we're at the 1 year mark for this universe, and I cannot wait to just keep eating what this universe has to offer.
Yeah. What's interesting is that I think possibly of every new iteration of characters that we have, dare I say, and maybe it's just because of the personal touch that Hickman's been giving this book, but dare I say, Ultimate Spider-Man has the most to lose if the Maker comes out. Like he
Yeah,
literally has an entire family, young children, that if Maker tries to target him or them coming out of this, it could be very, very dangerous. Spider-Man, man, you want to talk about a cockroach in the best, sense. Like this guy, his popularity can withstand an atomic bomb. And sometimes it just needs a fresh new coat of paint. I'm an evangelist for this series as well. I binged as many issues of this as I could. It's really, really fun. It really injects again new life into the character because he's doing a lot of the things for the first time. And unless you're around in the '60s or around 20 years ago for Ultimate Spider-Man, you haven't really got that a novice Peter Parker kind of figuring this out. We've had a lot of fun with him trying to pick an outfit. We've had a lot of fun with him being named. We've had a lot of fun with his rogues gallery filling in little by little. Um, but
and weird allies.
Yeah, and strange allies that if you know Spider-Man may not be allies for long, or maybe we'll be allies forever. Who knows? We got a good guy Doctor Doom in this universe. So it's very interesting to see the blocks continue to build for this character. And even though the cover is quite playful, Spider-Man in a Santa outfit, I wonder when the other shoe is going to drop. I'm very much looking forward
Exactly.
to this issue and the future of this. I believe this is Ultimate Spider-Man number 12. So we've just gotten Black Cat and stuff, right? Like we're fleshing
Yes,
out even
she
more of
she
the
showed up
universe.
in 10 and 11, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So the universe is getting even more fleshed out. And yeah, this is one of those things where I try not to predict. I really, really like the story that they're telling me, and I'm willing for it to come to me in any form. So I kind of just sit there drooling, and yeah, and then what? And then what happened? And that's where I'm at. So I'll definitely be looking into Ultimate Spider-Man.
definitely. So, what do you got for your first pick, Don?
I'm gonna piggyback off of what you said. I'm gonna go with Ultimate Universe number one. No, sorry, yeah, Ultimate Universe 1 year in number one on December 11th. There's a lot of ones there. Written by Dennis Camp with artist Jonas Shar. The solicitation reads: The clock is ticking down on the Maker's arrival. Dennis Camp flips the narrative on Ultimates and takes us inside the Maker's Council. The heroes of the Ultimate Universe aren't the ones who have been preparing the return for the Maker, and the clock is ticking down. This unique one shot sets the stage for the second year of the Ultimate line and introduced the debut of Ultimate versions of two major Marvel characters. Now, on the cover of this is Ultimate Nick Fury. He's reverted back to, David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury
I,
in this
I,
universe.
I just say, I mean, just say White Nick Fury.
How Nick? I thought that was gonna get me in trouble. That's why I went the way.
I know.
How only
I
Commando Nick Fury?
There you go. Sure, or
uh,
classic.
Classic,
Just Jim Steranko, Nick Fury. How about that?
right? And I believe that's one of these characters, but he has not shown up yet.
Nope.
Correct? So that was the
Nope.
introduction of one of these major characters. But I think people will be picking it up for what I perceive to be the other introduction, which will be Ultimate Wolverine. This Winter Soldier activated Manchurian candidate killing machine that purports to not be out the Wolverine that we know and love, and is working for the baddies. And it'd be very interesting to see that. But like you were talking about earlier, it's been a full year of them throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. A lot of it is sticking, and this not only serves as a bit of a refresher into all things that have been going on in the separate parts of this Ultimate Universe, but how they're all going to end up coming together. One of the things that it says in here that kind of perked my interest is it's right. We haven't really gotten much of a POV of the Maker's Council. They only kind of show up when they've been foiled, or or when something happens. You'll see a little bit of Captain Britain and stuff, right?
Yeah. Or we,
But
we we got a lot of them in
that
in
first, That
that
first thing,
first
right?
miniseries, the
Alt
Ultimate,
Universe number one, I think it was called the one
something like
shot.
that, and it was the one shot, and then the miniseries as
Yeah.
well before that. It's called
Invasion, Ultimate Invasion.
an Invasion. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So we don't know what he's been up to, and that's kind of the scary part. Things have seen idyllic. We've kind of gotten these new fresh starts because aside from the occasional baddie that various villains have to fight, we don't know what they're planning, and I'm kind of scared when we get up into this other side because they have been quiet. Besides, like I said, the occasional appearance of them to kind of quell this whole superhero stuff. Dennis Camp has my full on trust ever since Ultimates number four. One of my favorite comic book issues I've read this entire year, and I can't. I have to think that he has some very devilish things planned. The idea that you would think something like this and even Ultimates would be written by Hickman, which shows a level of trust that Dennis has been able to amass as somebody who's also become an architect in this universe as well. So they just complement each other at this point. And I'm really excited for this issue because it really just shows the passage of time. I can't believe it's been a full year since we were like, "What? They're doing what? Ultimate Spider-Man's coming back?" And now they said closing in on 13 issues later, and it still all feels new. It still all feels fresh, and it all kind of is. So I'm definitely looking into Ultimate Universe 1 year later, 1 year on, 1 year past.
1 year, 1 year in, one
One
year
year
in.
in, 1 year in. But has this book popped up on your radar at all?
Oh, what? Come on now.
Say
I've been preaching this
what?
universe since day one. And yeah, like you hit it on the head. That's something I wanted to make a note of is how much trust Marvel is showing in Dennis Camp. You're right. When I first seen this title, I was thinking, oh, Jonathan Hickman. And then I looked at it, Dennis Camp. I said, wow, they're putting a tremendous amount of trust in this guy. And I don't see any reason not to, because
Yeah.
this is, if you don't know, if you're not sure who what to read to back up our claim on the quality of this writer, read 20th Century Men, a book he wrote for Image. The way he tells this tale of superheroes in the Cold War from a very militaristic angle is captivating and very cold, but still full of heart. The way he tells
Yeah.
that story. So he's basically almost telling that story in a similar fashion with these Marvel characters in the Ultimate Universe. So I believe that this is in perfect hands with him, and the ideas he's introducing in Ultimates.
No, I mean, you're talking about a guy, like I said, any person that can have me kind of get sad and emotional about a comic book. I gotta read 20th Century Men because you know already about how much these heroes have sort of fed into war propaganda. You think about like Superman and buying war bonds with Captain America and all this other kind of stuff. Dennis, it's quick. It's interesting how he's able to marry those two things, but the trauma of this is seemingly something he's very good at. So I'm very afraid. For what is there a lot of trauma in 20th Century Men?
Lots, a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
So no, if the way that he tells, I don't want to spoil that story, but just pick it up. It's a trade you can easily find at any of your local comic shops. So just look at the way he's been able to tell the perspective on like just that issue you say you love so much,
hmm
Ultimate number 4. The way the whole time I was anticipating the reveal for the Ultimate Doctor Doom. I was anticipating a villainous turn.
yeah,
Instead, he made him into this ultimately sympathetic character
yeah.
that had one of the most heart wrenching moments of the year, probably for me in that issue. So no, Dennis, this is in great hands, and I'm looking forward to. A lot of people are kind of nervous, but I am anticipating good things from the introduction of the Ultimate Wolverine, because something we talked about last month is there are mutants in this world,
hmm
but we don't have an X-Men, right? We got a lot of them as villains. We got Omega Red, we got Colossus, we got Magic, but they're villains in this world.
Yeah,
And we have like this weird band of Japanese of mutants in Japan, but they're not the X-Men either.
no,
And now we're getting this Winter Soldier Wolverine showing up what does this mean for X-Men in this world? And I really believe that that's one of the things that's going to come out huge for the next year of the Ultimate Universe is the eventualness
Yeah,
of an X-Men showing up in this world,
yeah.
which I also believe is going to be where those MCU Kevin Feige guys like to get their X-Men ideas from.
They've been
So
trying to crack
this
that nut for a couple of years now, bro, and I feel like they don't really know how to. And this could be that. And like you were just talking about, Wolverine is so synonymous with that brand, so synonymous with that brand that they either have to cement it here or break it here. As far as who's going to be the what you think of when you think of the Ultimate X-Men.
right.
Gang,
So
gang.
this is going to be very very interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah. What else is in
Great
your
pick.
sack? I gotta find another bag. What else is in your bag?
Oh my god. Jeez, you're killing me with these
Papa's got a brand new bag and a brand new
these Santa
comic.
Claus references. But speaking of the X-Men, time to go back to our 616 world where we got X-Men number 8 from Jed MacKay and Ryan Stegman. This is the beginning of something that might turn people off, but it has me interested because I have already been so invested in this new post-Krakoan era of the X-Men.
Hmm.
This is part one of the raid on Graymalkin. And for those of you who don't who aren't aware, Graymalkin is now a prison that's housing one particular inmate that I don't know if some people heard of, but a person by the name of Professor X. And now the X-Men, who are very divided post Krakoa, you got the Cyclops team in Alaska, you got Rogue and Gambit with her kind of young bunch hanging out in Louisiana. You
Yeah.
got the NYX kids hanging out in somewhere in Manhattan. You got the Extraordinary X-Men hanging out with Shadowcat and White Queen. All and the X Force is doing their X Force stuff. So the X Men are very, very scattered. And not only is scattered now, but now they're fighting because you got two different teams that aren't sure what to do with how to handle what's going on with how Xavier's being imprisoned,
Yeah.
as well as the fact that something we talked about last month with Uncanny X-Men is they have this creature that's hunting down these new mutants. So now you got the two teams colliding over how to deal with Graymalkin, and they're about to have a head-on collision
Yeah, two
where,
completely
like,
different points of view of how to deal with this situation. Two different leadership styles, the
exactly.
tools that they have. That's pretty cool.
So in classic fashion, something we've had happen a lot over the years, where the X titles cross over, and a lot of times they bump heads. So
Yeah.
this is in classic fashion. We got Rogue going up against Cyclops. We're gonna have some Gambit throwing some cards at one of my favorite characters that is being featured a lot in X-Men is a character formerly known as Oya. I believe she's going by Temper now,
I was
and
gonna say
she's been
Trevor.
yeah, Temper. She's
Yeah.
been a standout character in X-Men for me. So it's just a lot of interesting things, a lot, and quickly. I mean, we're less than a year into this new post Krakoan era, and already we're having a crossover. And this is not a delightful crossover. This is a crossover where the
Almost
X
a
Men are
civil
fighting each
war.
other.
Almost a
A
civil
little
war of
civil war
sorts.
going, a little schism already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where it's going to go, how it's going to bring these two teams maybe eventually together, or how is it going to cause a further wedge between these teams? We'll see how it goes.
How you liking Cyclops on this team?
I love it. He had
Yeah.
one of the best moments so far on that in that title where he's meeting with a government agent from who they've given the X-Men this base that was a Sentinel making factory, which is how messed up is that, right?
Right.
Just imagine at the end of World War II where it's like, hey, we're sorry for what we did to all you Jews. We'll tell you what, we'll let you all live in
In
Auschwitz.
Auschwitz. Yeah. Yep.
Is that okay? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And so Cyclops like has to basically throw it in his face, like, "Hey, thanks for the Sentinel making factory that I settled on, and the only reason you guys are keeping an eye on me is because I have I have Magneto, Temper, and Beast. I have like all these controversial Juggernaut, you know, Magic. I have all these controversial people on me. That's the only reason you guys are like keeping a tab on me, because you
Yeah.
know I'm riding that line of being the X-Men or being the Brotherhood. So like kind of like how Magneto said in X-Men 97, you know, don't fail me.
Yeah, don't make me let you down.
Don't make me let you down.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's a team that can quickly be like, look, man, we were trying to do this whole human mutant relation thing well.
Yeah.
Screw it. Let's go the other way.
It doesn't serve us. Doesn't serve us. So yeah.
So that's why that team is so much fun. But then on the other side, you got on the uncanny side, they're trying to rebuild the school. They're trying to rebuild those positive relations. So they got these conflicting ideas right now.
And you have, I want to say,
This has been
X
fun.
Factor is like the Zoomers, like there's like a bunch of TikTok and
Mm-hmm.
PR sort of for the mutants thing. They're doing some very interesting contemporary stuff with that team. And you know, you've been here recommending different X-Men books every month, so it just goes to show that they are firing on all cylinders over there, which is very hard. I wouldn't say it was the same even coming out of Krakoa when they had 20 books. That didn't
No.
mean everything that they were that was coming out was good. And maybe because of the shadow of Krakoa or Hickman. But in this, you're seeing a lot of writers really flesh out these characters and these teams, and I'm always down for more weird X-Men. Like, just give me as many new
Yeah.
guys as possible, because it's always fun to mix things up there.
Yeah, because even some of the X books that I haven't recommended, like you said, if you like that idea of a team that's basically the the social media team,
Yeah,
that's X Factor. If you want a team that is the street level team, that's not really even a team, but they're just these mutants that are trying to be the liaisons for almost like the LGBTQ community, that's NYX. And then you got these classic stories with X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, and then even like this weird offshoot in Extraordinary X-Men. And then if
yeah,
you
you're
just
right. Like
want,
freedom fighters and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's really
you
just
got
tackling a lot of contemporary. They were always meant to be, right, an allegory for different demographics in the world. And there could have
Mhm.
been a point in which, in their vast popularity, they kind of lost sight of that. And I think this is doing that. This is kind of, in all of its little corners, addressing those issues. Quality X-Men.
There it is. So what do you got?
Well, I asked about Cyclops, and I was like, I remember that whole time, like that whole hard rehabilitation period post, militant Cyclops.
Mhm.
And there was that very, very wonky, timey-wimey, pulled him out of time kind of stuff. And time can also be a very tropey thing that takes place in comic books. But I'm leaning my hat over to a time-centric story coming out on December 18th from Marvel Comics, written by Catherine Blair and Pere Perez is doing the art. It is TVA number one. For
EVA. What is that?
TVA, for all times always, the Time Variance Authority has long watched over the timeline, protecting it from dangerous variations that could cause the end of everything. Now, as the organization begins to expand its tolerance of variance, it's enlisted some recruits from timelines that have been wiped from existence. Captain Peggy Carter, super soldier of her world. Gambit, despondent, aimless from the loss of his lady love. And, this can't be right, Spider-Gwen? Has her world been destroyed? Writer Catherine Blair, who wrote for Loki season 2, and artist uh, Pere Perez, who drew for Carnage and Spider Woman, bring a touch of cinematic flair to the bureaucracy at the end of time. This really feels like a snake eating its own tail thing, because the TVA was obviously a thing created in the comics first. Or this idea that there was an organization that was watching, the timekeepers, and they were all, kind of watching stuff. That's where Mobius comes from, Mobius and Mobius.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like, it's weird that we're coming back around. It's like, what was the chicken? What was the egg? Because now we're about to reintroduce the TVA in MCU fashion. Miss Minutes is now a thing. Miss Minutes is now a
It is.
Marvel character. This sort of like AI Alexa for the TVA is
Yeah, right.
now a Marvel Comics character. And I'm just interested in seeing what they're going to do here. I really thought the TVA was a means to an end in Loki season one. In Loki season two, they seem to be having even more fun with it. TVA showing up in Deadpool and Wolverine, so they want them to stay. So, what is the grand design for all this? What is are we going to start seeing some superhero led divisions of the TVA? You know, are we gonna see some people that's their just like when Bucky was the man on the wall, you know, and he had
Right.
that job up there on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we gonna
Yep.
start
Yep.
seeing some people that haven't been served in their particular stories or teams end up here? And hey, that's your job now. Your job is to stop variants or get rogue variants or rogue timelines and all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
the idea of roping in Spider Gwen, I poor girl. I feel like they can't find a place to put her in many ways. Didn't she come to this universe? I thought they had a whole thing where she came here in Spider Gwen number one or
As
Ghost Spider number
far as
one.
far as I know, yeah, like in the recent Ghost Spider or something, she is now in the 616, but it seems like they always find a ways to
Kick her
let
back
her
out.
jump. They would jump between realities, kind of thing. You know, they give her the watch or whatever.
Yeah, I just feel so
Like,
bad that they cannot shake that Spider Gwen moniker since they give it to her. They've been trying to keep her
mm-hmm.
Spider Woman or keep her as Ghost Spider. Like, oh,
Ghost
Spider
Spider.
Gwen, right?
No, it's Spider Gwen, right? She's like, why would I put my real name in my code name?
Right. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, man, what's going on here? Synergy abound? Is this gonna make or break one side or the other? How are you feeling about this TVA? I was gonna say being roped into the in Marvel Comics, but it exists in Marvel Comics. How do you feel about this MCU coat of paint on the TVA moving forward? Would this make things easier for new readers to enjoy the TVA? Because I felt like some of the other stuff was a bit dense.
Well, the TVA was originally introduced in the pages of Fantastic Four, like back in the 80s, I think 80s or 90s,
Yeah.
and they showed up only for like a couple of issues. It was almost kind of like a joke, I feel, or just one of those things where whoever was writing at the time just needed something to say. Okay, there's this time authority that shows up to say, hey, we need to fix this thing, and no one
Yeah.
ever really jumped on it until Loki. But the funny thing is, we had a title like this back in the 90s, and it lasted for quite some time. If you remember, a title called The Exiles.
Yes. Yes, I do.
The Exiles, for those of you who didn't know, were this team that were brought together by, I think they were called like timekeepers, but they weren't the Time Variance Authority. They pulled different characters from different universes that were failing or something, or that would suit their needs, put them on this team, and then tell them, okay, we need you to go fix these different universes.
That they
So
called
that,
hiccups.
yes,
Little hiccups to deal with.
and that those Exiles books for it. I mean, that series lasted like 75 issues, and then they even tried to bring it back not too long ago using some weird offshoots of MCU characters. They brought it back at one point
Ah,
with Captain Carter,
I
with
remember this.
the Tessa Thompson Valkyrie. So they tried to use those characters in the pages of Exiles, and I feel like now they're, like you said, they're using the synergy of, okay, well, that maybe the Exiles brand is not with it no more. Let's kind of give the same concept to the TVA, bring in all the characters so that it's a little bit for everybody. You got Sylvie, you got what was this dude's name? The data guy,
Oh, Obi,
Obi.
Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. They had Ouroboros. You have Mobius here, and looking just like his is the actor, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so you have those characters for the people who only know the show, and then you got these characters like Spider Gwen, Agent Carter, a weird Gambit to represent us comic readers, to make us want to read this book. It's only a mini series, and hopefully it does catapult everybody into a more interesting level. And
Hmm.
perhaps it'll continue. Maybe it'll continue as Exiles. Who knows who knows where this is going to go. I hope it's good. I hope this concept does bring to light all these interesting characters. And why not? I've said it for months now. The MCU needs the comics. So if these comics can help bring out better stories, that'll make everybody more attracted once again to the MCU. Because as great as Deadpool was, that's Deadpool Wolverine was. We need more consistency. Agatha all along, for the most part, a very good series. So we're on the right track. Let's see where it goes from here, and hopefully these comics can continue to show the MCU the direction they need to go.
Yeah. It's I was more against it early on, and then you start to know things like, it was if it wasn't for the X-Men films, Xavier's helmet wouldn't be blocking, I'm sorry, Magneto's helmet wouldn't be
Magneto's helmet,
blocking
right?
Xavier stuff. We were just talking about Harley Quinn and Kahori, before. Sometimes this thing works. Sometimes it does. It does help flesh this stuff out. Some
Yeah.
people could not be bothered to flesh out the TVA. I mean, come on, imagine being tasked that. Oh, you're here to fight for Marvel? We're giving you the TVA. You know what I'm saying? But now, given its newfound resurgence in the MCU, I can see this being an exciting venture. So I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try it out.
Let me know how it is.
What you got under the Christmas tree?
For the next present, which I think is a fantastic present. Speaking of fleshing out universes, because we got this guy by the name of James Gunn
Yes.
rebuilding the DC extended universe, or what,
He,
the James Gunn DC films, a character that even I don't know much about, despite my rich background in comics. Character I've only dealt with a little bit of in a little bit in the comics, a little bit in the cartoons, but a character that is going to be showcased in the upcoming Superman movie is Metamorpho, and he's getting his
yes.
own title in this new all-in world called Metamorpho, the Element Man. Number
Rex
one,
Mason, baby.
there it is, right? And it's being written by a great writer, a writer I know you like, a writer I have read much of. Excuse me, Al Ewing, and art by
Ah.
Steve Lieber. Metamorpho, just to give you a hint of it, to know him is to love him. The fab freak who can change himself into any element in the human body. He's the one and only Rex Mason, alias Metamorpho. But even he went out against Cyclops, the hairy eyeball of crime that gazes from the top of the pop charts to the lowest depths of evil. And even in the far off, far out Ra realm, is that a Ra's al Ghul realm or something? What's going
Yeah,
on here?
I read that for the first time in that solicitation.
You know what I mean?
Raw Rome.
Lots of weird things going on in this book. It's a book that I'm willing to give a chance because the character Metamorpho is someone who always looks interesting to me. I believe was it a Superman episode or a Justice League episode that he first showed up on in the animation? Do you
I want
remember?
to say Justice
Was it
League, but
Justice League?
I'll double check.
You know, he interests me. He's just he's like just this person that can turn into any kind of an element. He has a tragic backstory similar to that of Clayface, but instead of just becoming an all-out villain, he became a hero. And the fact that he's got the James Gunn eye on him, and James Gunn's basically almost guiding everything, whether it's the comics, the animation, and the movies. I believe that this is going to be one of those books to keep an eye out for because he's going to be an important character in that universe. So the last thing he wants to do is make him less than stellar in the comics. So
Yeah.
I think this series, along being written with Al Ewing, guy he's written Venom. He had a great run on, was it? Yeah,
Uh,
he
Ultimate
wrote
Immortal Hulk.
Hulk. He wrote that great Hulk run. He's got his Venom run going. He's written other stories like We Only Find Them Until They're Dead. Great indie story.
The
Check it out if you haven't
Ultimates,
had a
not to be
chance.
confused with the other Ultimates. He wrote the ones Blue Marvel, Captain Marvel.
Oh, yes. Yes, that Ultimates 1 and 2, where he brought us Galactus the Lifebringer,
Yeah.
brought us the Blue Marvel to attention again. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, with him writing it, James Gunn kind of behind the scenes on it, and just a weird, fun character. I have to give it a shot.
Yeah. He's always has been shown to me as to be like a kind of a tragic character who kind of takes it on the chin. Like that's how almost like a Ben Grimm-esque characterization of like
Yep.
the everyman. He's not super fancy. He's not the smartest man in the world, but he has a heart of gold. He's incredibly loyal, incredibly loving to those that are around him. It says that he first made his appearance in Justice League Unlimited. Oh, sorry, a two-part Justice League episode called Metamorphosis, where he is shown to be a former Marine and an old friend of John Stewart. And then uh, kind of gets his powers and stuff, and then eventually he ends up showing up in Justice League Unlimited as a member of the Justice League. But he's been in Brave of the Bold, he's been in Beware of Batman, he's been in Young Justice. He was in the Justice League film New Frontier. There was an evil version of him on Crisis on Two Earths. He's in the Teen Titans Goes to the Movies. He's in Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Um, and yeah, like you said, he's going to appear in Superman, played by Anthony Carrigan, who, if you're a Gotham fan, I believe he played Victor Zsasz in
I
Gotham,
believe it did. Yeah. Mhm.
that eyebrowless serial killer. Um, but Yeah, this seems like fun. Al Ewing can be the one of the most brilliant slash depressing writers I've read when he really wants to dive into stuff. Just as the way he's able to get a third dimension out of some of these characters. You know, he got a third dimension out of the Wendigo. You know, like what are we doing out here in these streets when we're getting like a meta context behind the Wendigo? But yeah, sometimes all it takes is a film appearance, a TV appearance to skyrocket a character's stock, and you want to know Metamorpho before the world gets introduced to Metamorpho
Exactly.
next year. Metamorpho will be in Superman next year, but yeah, get on the bandwagon before the bandwagon gets full, which is something we say many times on this podcast. Check out this book, check out this series, and be ahead of the game. And then, people be like, who's this Metamorpho? Oh, Rex Mason?
Oh,
Let me tell you about
I'll
him.
tell you about him.
Let me tell you about him.
Better yet, pass him the book. Hey, read this,
King
and then
Gang.
we'll talk.
Talk about the gift that keeps on giving for this holiday season.
Right?
Um, Again,
What you got?
I will follow your lead. People know people don't know about Metamorpho, but people know about Venom. He just came out with a
Who?
film. He just came out with a film that I did not love, but I understood. and
I
and
thought I well, did you like it more than Joker 2?
I did. I did.
Good.
I thought it liked its audience more than Joker 2.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
So um I read the Donny Cates Venom run. I thought it was fantastic. And the movie's try to do its best to serve it. We might even be going in more of a direction to serve those stories as we continue with Spider-Man, Null, et cetera, and so forth in the Sony universe of Marvel characters. But they're about done with old Eddie Brock as Venom in the comics. They've told some epic stories, but I think where they're kind of running a bit dry. We've tried reinventions with this character before, with him being on Mac Gargan,
Hmm.
Gargan,
Yeah, Matt
uh,
Gargan, the Scorpion.
the Scorpion. He was on Flash Thompson for a while. There's a guy in the middle of there that I can't even remember. I think he was a villain too as well, some like serial killer or something. But the mystery is who is the all new Venom and all new Venom #1, which comes out on December 4th by this writer Al Ewing. You ever heard of him? Uh, so
Not once.
as Al redefines Metamorpho for DC, he will also simultaneously redefine Venom for Marvel Comics. The solicitation reads: When the dust settles on Eddie and Dylan's symbiote heavy brawl, the Venom symbiote will have a new host to call its home. But it's a mystery in Marvel Comics as to find out who it's going to be, and Dylan will be the one sort of in a detective role trying to figure out who this new Venom is. The four suspects are Robbie Robertson, Madam Mask, Rick Jones, and Luke Cage. The most visually different thing about this all new Venom is all of the white is replaced on this character design with yellow, which makes a lot of people think that it's going to be Luke Cage. Do you have any you wanna bet on who you think this all new Venom is? I think the
Uh,
signs point to Luke Cage, and I kind of would be disappointed if it was anyone but. I don't know if Robbie Robertson needs a symbiote. Rick Jones maybe, but isn't he A bomb? And then Madam Mask. I don't think I don't think that there's a oh, there's a woman underneath that. That I know that sounds sexist, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. I don't think that there's a woman underneath that symbiote.
I mean, it's to me the fact that they're giving us four people to choose from. I have a feeling it's going to be none of those.
Oh
I could see that
no.
happening.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, because I mean, I hope that's not the case because that's just cruel.
Hmm.
And I think Luke Cage. I mean, Luke Cage is the obvious choice because of the color scheme.
Yeah.
He fits the body type.
Right.
But I don't know. I just have a feeling it's not going to be any of
You
those.
want to throw you want to
So
throw a random name in the hat?
I'm going to throw a random name out there, and just to make it adjacent to some of those characters, I'm going to go ahead and say it's Danny Rand.
Interesting. Danny Rand.
He fits the color scheme. He's a
Yeah.
color. He's a character adjacent to most of those characters that are listed. And why not? Right? It's the ultimate Scooby Doo Deke. Right? Oh man, it's got to be Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Well, Danny was in the office that day, and it was going to
Right,
jump on
right.
Luke, but he jumped in front of him. And G
Yeah, we've seen
Scoob,
it.
I
We've
can't
seen this
believe
happen
it.
before, where all this stuff ends up being a red herring for something else. I think it would be interesting to be Luke Cage, but ultimately, I don't. This symbiote stuff can bog a character down. We've seen it happen before, so hopefully they have new, fresh takes for this character. And I can see Sony wanting to do more with Venom, but not necessarily wanting to do more with Eddie Brock. And we will see. We'll see who this lands on, so that you can continue telling Venom story, but not necessarily continue telling Eddie Brock stories. But yeah, Al
Hmm.
Ewing cutting it on both sides, buttering both sides of the bread.
Yeah, no,
I ain't
he
mad at him.
definitely
I
is Marvel, DC, and still doing independent work. I mean, Al's an amazing writer.
Yeah.
So even though the Venom and the symbiotes has not always been my cup of tea, this character has been up there in
Mm,
attention. So this
mm,
is something I definitely will be paying an eye on. And I'm curious who is this? Who is this new Venom? I
yeah.
hope if I end up being right, I'm gonna be so proud of myself.
I'll tell. Oh, shit. Al is also really good at dealing with characters whose powers come from like a primitive or more older, that where their powers even have lore. He's the one who kind of fleshed out the stuff with some, like I said, Blue Marvel, right? And able to dig and find lore where there was none. So I just want to I want a new take on Venom. I liked, like I said, what Donny Cates did, but it felt like literally he wrote the end. Like he wrote he wrote what would be the third act for that character, and going back feels like walking back. So let's get a new character out there. Let's get some new stories out there, and let's see what's all new Venom is all about.
Sure. All right. So to keep this train going,
Choo
guys,
choo.
let's ride this train and let's get some darn it, I cannot remember what I was gonna say.
we're riding it. We're riding the train. Stand clear of the closing doors. Make sure you
Stand clear of the closing doors, please. But guys, not to, let's forget about the train and just remember the tank, a thunder tank,
yes.
if you will. Let's ride this into the Thundercats because the Thundercats has been an absolutely great place to be. Dynamite, again, this is something I've been stressing the last bunch of months. Dynamite with their licensed characters, Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, soon to be Silverhawks, all the Disney properties they've been doing, and especially Thundercats, taking what was this 30-minute cartoon that I grew up on. I think, George, how much Thundercats did you watch as a kid?
I
A good
watched a ton
amount,
enough to get a crush on cat women.
right? Right? You know, nobody wants to admit that they're a furry, but we all love Chitara.
And those are not attainable bodies, all right? I just want to say that as well. But anyway, continue.
But no, Declan Shelby has been writing a great story with Drew Moss on the art. This next issue, Thundercats number 11, which comes out in December, is the next act of his story, and the way he's been building this Thundercat world, because not it's already been doing so well that it has a miniseries devoted to Chitara, which explains her origins.
Yep.
Another miniseries is going to be coming out called Thundercats Apex, which is going to go into another what you would consider small detail of the world, but just to flesh it out, to make it more real, to give us that depth that we would never get in a 30-minute cartoon. And here in this series, you're just the level of understanding we're getting for these characters, the this depth and gravitas for what seems like, oh, it's just cat characters. No, this is not cat characters.
Mm,
This is a respect and a depth that we always probably wanted as kids, or maybe envisioned in our heads as kids, and now we're getting it. With and again, these are just properties. These are, George talked about the Transformers, the Energon universe as being, banging the toys together. Now we're getting the Thundercats being banged together, and these stories have just been absolutely wonderful to read. The art has been gorgeous. So, guys, if you are still yearning for that taste of Thundercat, that nostalgia feel, but want to get that adult take on it, Thundercats number 11. We're still early on in these stories, so jump in on it before it's completely gone from you.
yeah. Like I said, does, you were using the train metaphor before, but it does feel like a train that's taking off, and you want to get on it before you miss it. And you have other people tell you about how fun it was when they read it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Thundercats is something is another property that I feel like mainstream media has been trying to crack to give a resurgence. It's one of the last few that they haven't necessarily. They did that very weird animated resurgence not too long ago. Do you remember that? Where they were kind of like drawn like
Which,
Steven Universe characters.
yeah, that was. I enjoyed it because I watched it with my kids,
Mhm.
but it didn't serve that itch because a few years prior to that, they did try to bring it back in a more adult setting, but the toys didn't sell. So the toys didn't sell. They
Ah,
had to kill it. But for those of you who maybe never knew about it, look at, I think it's on Hulu or even on YouTube, and it's only like 20 episodes, and it's fantastic. And the way it ends, it's such a cliffhanger ending, and it's never happens. But that has always whet my appetite for a comic book like this that takes the characters more seriously and gives us this like I said, this depth and this more adult take on these characters, to where you're just feeling them more. They just feel like these human like characters, the depths of their emotions and how
yeah.
they deal with, these reptilian villains and Mumra and all these silly things. It's not silly in this world. Declan has a love and takes this world seriously, and it's been a comic that I just been loving month to month. And we're only 11 issues in, and they're fast reads, and the art is beautiful.
Yeah, the I'm looking now. There was a 2011
Mm-hmm.
series.
Yep.
That looked like it had a more anime influence,
Yep.
but it also had a tremendous amount of like the who's who of voice actors. It had Will
Yeah.
Friedle. It had Kevin Michael Richardson. It had Clancy Brown, who man, that man just does everything nowadays. But yeah, like I said, it's a hard nut to crack. Where they did this, but they didn't sell the toys, and then they did Thundercats Roar. That was a more recent one, but maybe that
Yeah.
wasn't serious enough. Um, Comic books is a strange medium because it serves less masters than any other medium. Um,
Yeah.
it doesn't if they decided they wanted to make this a maxi series, it's a maxi series. Now it's more than the normal 21 pages. They wanted to make
Right.
it a mini series, it's a mini series. They want to make it, there's no restraint there. Whereas when you're a television show, especially one geared towards children, you have your hands handcuffed a bit as to what the real mission is. The real mission is to make money ultimately overall. So if we can get some good stories out by really talented people, then they will just translate over as they've always done. We don't get X-Men the animated series without tremendous stories written years before. And that show wouldn't have done so well without the stories that were created from it. But it's funny that the show exists and then it inspires people to write stories about potentially the next show.
Right.
you know how all this goes.
Round
But
and around it goes, right?
but I mean that's why people check out this show because you have always given them sight beyond sight, and so that makes a lot of
Excellent.
sense.
So what is the site you're giving us for the next pick there?
My next pick, I'm doing a bit of a buddy road trip kind of story. We're ending the year. I wouldn't have gotten here without any of my friends, and so I wanted a bit of a buddy story on my list. And I'm wrapping my mind around World's Finest, Green Arrow / Green Lantern, which comes out on December 18th. It's written by Jeremy Adams with Lucas Meyer as an artist. And it says everyone's favorite hard traveling heroes are back and brought to you through the iconic lens of World's Finest. In the not so distant past, Oliver Queen and Hal Jordan find themselves at a crossroads, and only teaming up together once more will save them from the scope of a mysterious bounty hunter known in whispered tones throughout the underworld as Deathstroke the Terminator.
Ooh.
Plus, writer Jeremy Adams. Look at the strange car at your local high school. Plus, writer Jeremy Adams returns to the world of the Flash to weave a twisted tale of Barry on the road to crisis. It's a world's finest adventure you cannot miss in this special oversized one-shot spectacular. I love the world's finest imprint. There's a very wholesome in nature that permeates throughout the world's finest imprint. I have a couple of the trades for Batman and Superman. Mark Waid, great stuff. These guys are the street level. I mean, the ones that are literally an intergalactic space cop, but these guys made their bones together as a team, Green and Green, walking America and kind of figuring out what was wrong with it. and the idea that we will go back to these two, I think is interesting. I'm always down to also spotlight them. I think that they are auxiliary characters sometimes on the Justice League, but they deserve the spotlight in and of themselves. And this idea that, a trope on major previews is picking a story that purports to go back to a certain point in time in actual comics and give it a bit more depth. Now we're going to see how these guys found out about a badass like Deathstroke, and what does that mean, and how do they end up gearing for that. It's gonna be beautifully drawn. It's gonna be beautifully written. But what I most anticipate is an incredible amount of heart, because I do think that these world's finest stories are a bit more pulpy. They are a bit more easy as far as like who's good and who's bad. And I just want to see my boys get together, have beef, and then get back together again at the end of it, as all these stories tend to do. Do you have any familiarity with these like Green Arrow, Green Lantern stories?
Oh yeah, I mean, back in the late '70s and '80s, they were the team, I believe, on Brave and the Bold. Was it?
I believe that was it. I'll check it out. I'll
That
check it
was
out.
what I think that's what it was. It was World Finest has always been, from my knowledge, the Batman Superman book, and
Yes.
then Brave and the Bold was kind of a who's who. But for a long time, they did a lot of Green Arrow, Green Lantern stories. So to see this duo back together, doing their thing, where Green Arrow kind of grounds Hal Jordan, because Hal Jordan does need that every now and again because he's a jackass. I'm sorry to say, he's not my favorite Green Lantern. We've delved into that many times on the channel. But I do love Green Arrow. He's always been a very interesting character, even on the show where they turned him into Batman.
Yeah, I'm
You know,
Batman.
he's Batman. But
Yeah.
even recently in Absolute Power, seeing him do what he did with Amanda Waller, and how he becomes again the heart of the Justice League, it's fantastic. So seeing them team up, even in this is only a one shot. This looks like it's going to be a very, very fun one shot. And maybe this will lead into Green Arrow and Green Lantern taking the reins from Batman Superman on World's Finest,
Yeah.
because it seems like Mark Waid is like finishing up his time on that. So if this is like them, DC kind of saying, hey, this is just so this is going to be the shift. I'm with that, because Jeremy Adams has been killing it on Green Lantern, and I think he did Green Lantern and Green Lantern Core. So I'm all for this, because again, DC really has been killing it the last couple months.
Interestingly enough, these guys were never given a title. They were always Green Lantern and Green Arrow. Green Arrow and the Flash are worlds, Brave and the Bold.
Brave and the Bold, okay.
Yeah, Green Arrow and the Flash. Um,
So the title they had together was literally just called
Green
Green Arrow,
Arrow
Green
and Green
Lantern.
Lantern for
Oh,
a
there
year,
wasn't.
83 to 84, and then it will say like Hard Traveling Hero somewhere around it. Neil Adams, famously.
Yes, Neil
Um,
Adams. Yes, yes, yeah.
yeah, rest in
And Dennis and Denny, and I think,
peace.
yeah, Neil Adams and Dennis O'Neil, I believe. Was
Rest in
that the writer?
peace. Yeah.
Right, both right, right, right.
Both
Yeah,
of
a
them.
great, great. I always thought it's kind of like Marvel team up.
Yeah,
Where Marvel team up was always the thing and somebody. I thought like they had a banner above
like
their.
World's Finest. Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah,
Or not World's
yeah,
Finest, but Raven the Bold. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Interesting. No, so no, this is definitely a one shot to me to pick up and to check out. And like I said, who knows what it's gonna lead into.
Yeah, and again, the world where we're constantly talking about multiverse and all this other kind of stuff, sometimes you want to read about a guy with a bow and arrow and who looks like Errol Flynn. You know?
I'm fine with that,
Gang,
especially
gang.
if his wife we talked about so affectionately recently, Black Widow,
Yeah,
shows up
man.
every now and again.
Hey,
I'm
I
with
ain't
it,
mad at it. Hey, pretty bird.
right? All right, so to wrap this up, my last pick for the month of November is a very, very weird book, but a book that kind of goes along with the color scheme that we've been talking about. It's
Hmm.
a book called Snot Girl. Okay.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. I don't blame you, because even I forgot about this book. But thank God for previews,
Yes, yes.
because this is a book that if not for three words, or three names, I really should say, Brian Lee O'Malley.
Ah, that's
If you,
Mr. Scott Pilgrim.
Mr. Scott Pilgrim himself. Brian Lee O'Malley has done a lot of books ever since Scott Pilgrim, one being a book called Seconds, which was a great giant trade paperback that came out, a great, great story. But then he also did this very weird, and speaking of like social media influencing, book about this. She's almost like an Instagram model, TikTok star
Uh-huh.
living in LA, and she has a peculiar thing about her that makes it very difficult for her to be an influencer, and she has horrible allergies. So her nose is constantly running.
Right.
So, and in the world of social media, especially where people have cameras in their pockets or readily available, she's constantly having to constantly hide the fact that she has allergies.
Hmm.
This is not a book I would normally read under any circumstances, if not for the fact that it's being done by Brian Lee O'Malley.
Right.
And it's a weird book that disappeared for like 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Issue number 15 came out, I want to say like in 2019, 2018. Long, yeah, it was a long time ago. And I
Besides
just
the global
completely,
pandemic, as you said, why he took so long?
I just not really, not as far as I know.
Okay.
But it's just a book that was just gone. It was kind of a joke for a while, like, oh yeah, Brian Lee O'Malley just, I guess, made enough money or something. And if not for, thank God, me flipping through the previews and seeing a poster even recently that I really thought was a joke, I was like, what? Snot Girl's finally coming back. And I mean, this is a book that, besides the premise that I just told you about, has a lot of weirdness to it. And it's a weirdness that you have to enjoy. If you love Scott Pilgrim, you'll love it in this book, because Scott Pilgrim had a lot of weirdness to it that was fantastical. The idea
Yeah.
of getting a one up, the idea of traveling through worlds in people's brains. This book has more grounded weirdness, and that I feel is one of those things where it's like, they say the truth is stranger than fiction kind of
Yes.
thing,
Hmm.
because a lot of things happen in this story, that in these issues, the first 15 issues, that make you go, that would never happen. But then when you think about it, I'm like, and the world we live in nowadays, and the way social media works, and the way that people are so driven to get that attention from social media, I totally believe it would happen. And there have been a lot of just odd, you know would be assassins, would be, relationships, the way people interact with one another for the sake of likes, or not to have a relationship come out.
Yeah.
It's, and it just gives you this look into the world of social media that you may not normally get, because most of us only know it from the perspective of the viewer. And this story is all about kind of seeing behind that realm, and seeing how it is these people interact with one another on an actual relationship basis.
Yeah.
And it's been a very, very interesting book, a book that, like I said, I did not see myself getting into. I only picked up the first couple issues because of Brian Lee O'Malley, and the next thing you know, I'm up to issue 15, and I
It
remember
dries up.
after,
It
and
all
it dries
dries
up, it
up.
just goes away. It's like, what happened to this book?
Yeah.
Like, where has it gone? And I just kind of like wrote it off as, I guess it's just one of those. It's the battle chasers of this period,
Hmm.
and thank God it's back, and it's coming out soon, and it's picking up right where it left off. You know, the girl's name is Lottie. One of the arcs of the first bunch of issues was that she was desperately in love with this girl Caroline,
Hmm.
and like, I don't want to spoil it. Pick it up. You can pick up all the first 3 trades for like $10. Pick it up. It's this weird, intricate love triangle that, I've in the last couple of years,
I
I've heard a
mean,
lot of interesting
Brian Lee
stories of people.
O'Malley with love triangles, you know?
Exactly. Just check it out. It's so weird. It's one of those stories that you like. There's no way this can be true, but I guarantee you, we've known people who've had these kind of relationships, who've dealt with the social media troubles, the online dating.
Yeah.
This book gets to the heart of that and makes fun of it, but also brings a heart to it, because Brian Lee O'Malley, if he can make you like Ramona and Knives and Scott, check out this book.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of does speak to the whole Scott Pilgrim of it all. Scott Pilgrim is a very human story. They just use the lens of video games and the tropes of video games to tell the story, because they know that those tropes are something that we're very familiar with. And it also kind of talks to our society at the time and how we had to save the princess. We had to win the girl. We had to, like that was kind of how our society was focused at the time. I often, I hear a lot of people say like, "Oh my God, influencers and they make so much money and they get a real job," kind of stuff. I couldn't do it. I couldn't constantly be taking pictures of myself, constantly videoing myself, constantly giving people that much access to my personal life. Uh, Taking 1,000 selfies to pick the best. Taking, filming myself eating. at every point. It's rough. It takes a level of vulnerability, and then sometimes that vulnerability washes away as you create a plastic version of yourself, a version that you can present, and you almost don't have any more of you left. You're a brand now. You're a character that you're playing. And what does that mean when we are all trying to find our most authentic selves? When it's so easy to just become a character, to just create an alias. And yeah, you can have five influencers in a room together. They're not hugging and they're not hugging and playing Jenga. They're all yeah, everyone's got their phones out for their own content, for their own channel, for their own brand, for their own streaming service or whatever the heck that comes. And that's got to be a soul eating experience, especially when, for the most part, it all starts with the basic need of I'd like to have a little bit more money, or I'd like to be a little bit more comfortable. And next thing you know, you're in an industry where you do have to sell yourself at every given time. And what does that mean when you may not like yourself? That has to have a whole host of things. Like I said, Brian Lee has gotten this far by taking regular human problems and putting them through a lens that pop culture recognizes. Everyone understands likes now. Everyone understands being canceled now. Everyone understands going viral now. These are terms that work. So him using that with regular things like love and self-esteem and who we choose to present ourselves to, the different masks we wear in society. I know he's going to tackle that stuff, and I think that he has quite a quirky sense of humor as well. And I think there's going to be a lot. Oh, I perceive you've already read that there's a lot of that in this, of his
Oh
kind of
yeah.
signature kind of comedy in this. So yeah, it's not girl. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm going to be looking forward to it,
Yeah.
moving forward. So it's not
This is
girl.
this is like in the past we've talked about comics that you can hand to somebody that doesn't necessarily read comics.
Hmm.
This you can hand to somebody, and I think it just speaks to most people because even if you're not in that world, we are subjected to that world to the point where we know these terms, even if it's a term that you don't agree with or you don't deal with,
Hmm.
going viral or liking and disliking and getting canceled. This
What was it?
comic,
What was the word retweet 20 years ago? If I
right,
told you, yo, are you gonna retweet that or not? You're like, what?
right.
Do what?
Are you asking me to whistle?
Right, right, right.
What? You know what I mean? So this comic brings that to light, and it brings it. There's a heart to it, but it makes a lot of fun of it. So that's why I like it.
Gang, gang. We
So
checking
how
out
do you
Snot
finish
Girl.
off your December pick, sir?
It's an epic year. This has been an epic video series, so I have to end things in an epic way. One of the pioneers of this entire industry, who basically gave his life, body, and soul, is a man known as Jack King Kirby. And Jack King Kirby is known as one of the architects of early Marvel, getting it to exactly where it needed to be before it ends up taking off and becoming the juggernaut that we know it today. But it owes a lot of its design, of its story, of its characterization behind the King, Jack King Kirby. When things did not go too hot for him over there, he went over to the distinguished competition, and they kind of gave him free reign. And one of the things that he created was the fourth world over at DC. And the fourth world was populated by a bunch of characters called the New Gods. We are getting New Gods #1 on December 18th, but obviously, Jack the King Kirby hasn't been on this earth for quite some time, and I would be very surprised if you wrote this issue, but instead, it's going to be written by Ram V. We tackled Ram V as part of the Major Issues podcast when we tackled the many deaths of Layla Starr, where he is quite literally dealing with gods and kind of playing around with gods. He's had a polarizing run on Detective Comics. Some absolutely love it, some are not big fans, but this guy is great at mythology. He's great at world building. He's great at seeing the ethereal, the spiritual, and I trust him behind this. The New Gods are a set of characters that I became more familiar with because of Tom King's Mr. Miracle. I always knew they existed, but the weird dynamics of these two sons traded during a wartime to create peace, and then both of them raised distinctively differently. The characters like Metron, characters like Scott Free, like Barda, like Granny Goodness, um, like
Darkside,
Darkseid. He's a big one there, right? High Father, Orion. These characters are huge.
Calabac.
Calabac, the Furies. It is it's a fleshed out world, but it's one that hasn't been fleshed out recently. There was a rumor at one point that they were making a New Gods film, and it was going to be directed by Ava DuVernay.
Mhm.
I got super excited about that because she had apparently put Tom King on the writing team for that. So I'm like, oh, are we getting Vision? Mr. Miracle, we going there? Like that was awesome. I'd love to do it again, but no. We are redefining the new gods for a new generation, and the solicitation reads: An old god has died, and the reverberations of his passing are felt through the universe, setting forth the soldiers of an intergalactic army and awakening the latent powers of a mysterious child on Earth. But all this has been foreseen, prophesized by the source, and fed as an enigmatic images to its agent Metron, who sits on the big old chair. Now, as Metron brings word to the cosmos-shattering prediction to the residents of the new Genesis and Apocalypse, both worlds are thrown into chaos and conflict. On Earth, Scott Free and Barda find themselves unaware of this incoming chaos while consumed with their most daunting task yet: parenthood. Ram V and Evan Kagel bring forth the fourth world to a new generation in this epic of cosmic proportions. The old god has died, the new gods are born. So yeah, man, I'm always they're one of my favorite couples, Scott Free and Barda, because Barda, is 2 feet taller than him, and I'm a short king. So,
Hey, don't feel too bad. She's 2 feet taller than like everybody.
that's true. One could dream, though. One could dream. Thank you for giving me something to aspire to, Scott. Um, but yeah, Ram V, man, I trust him with something. Sometimes the more literal characters he's not that great with because they are kind of bare bones, and we just want to see. I don't want if you're watching the Bourne series, you don't necessarily want a meditation on gun manufacturing and whether or not we should be dealing in foreign agencies. I'm not saying that they don't delve on deep things, but you're there for the punches and the kicks and the shoots.
Mhm.
And sometimes, like under the Batman thing, maybe he wasn't best served dealing with Batman because I do think that sometimes you can dive too deep into Batman. I don't think it should be that cerebral sometimes. It really is just a rich dude beating up people in a suit kind of stuff. When you start going to like the Barbatos and Faded and the Clan of the Bat and stuff like that, it can kind of get a little hairy. So this is where you sink your teeth, Rambi. This is where you let your claws, you grab your grubby little claws on all the bits of the new gods, all the bits of the fourth world, things that other artists won't touch because it might be too daunting. But I do think that he is the man for the task. I do think he was built for something like this. Jack left a beautiful world for other people to continue, for other people to world build in. And I want to hope that Ram V is the next artiste to be able to, color in a different version of the fourth world. But yeah, that's my final pick there. Is Ram V or the New Gods on your radar at all?
No, if you didn't pick this book, I would have. Ram V for me is one of the best writers out there. The
Yeah.
guy, the guy has written stories that I like. We covered it. The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. He brings a depth to stories that a lot of writers don't, and he's able to take weird characters and elevate them. I
Yeah.
mean, he had a run on Swamp Thing that was absolutely amazing. I mean, he was back when we covered Future State.
Yeah,
Though
you're
those
right.
2 or 3 issues that he did for Swamp Thing were one of the standouts of Future State that made
Yeah.
me go, I want to read more about like by this guy because he gets it and he's able to take something as silly as Swamp Thing, who a character that has had stellar writers on Alan Moore, Scott Snyder, Charles Soule, and then he comes along and is able to add to that lore. I'm like, wow, who is this guy? So when you read other things he's written, like The One Hand and Six Fingers, he even had a story about the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Again, kind of speaking of, we talked about in private conversation about how Universal dropped their whole Dark Universe
Yeah.
world. Meanwhile, in comics, him and a couple other people are rebuilding it from in comic form. Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein,
Bit by bit.
bit by bit. They're bring all these classic Universal monsters are being written beautifully, and he's one of the architects for that. So I'm not surprised at this man's ability to write and to see him writing new gods with what he knows and this world that this is one of those worlds kind of like we talked about earlier with Justice Society, where it's as much as people know about it, it's a world you can kind of tinker with however you want to. So the fact that he's able to, because I believe they did a story. The last story they did with the New Gods was basically like kind of like the solicitation says. A bunch of people, a bunch of them died, or they kind
Yeah,
of reset their world in preparation for that movie that is now not going to happen.
right.
So the fact that they're handing it
Their
to
own
Ram,
dark universe.
yeah, the fact that they're handing it now to Ram V to write and rebuild that world. I mean, when there was announced a few months ago that he was even writing this, I was like, I'm there for that. I'm gonna definitely be jumping on that. So December, more Christmas gifts for us comic readers, man. More
Damn right.
Christmas gifts. So this is a absolutely stellar pick. I will be picking it up. You're gonna be picking it up, and everybody listening to this should pick it up.
Yeah, man. Both DC and Marvel are realizing how deep their rosters truly are, not only in their characters, but the writers who have brought a lot of these characters to life. We are living in a very, like I said, we have an embarrassment of riches going on right now, and the excitement to read comics is growing ever bigger. These comics are genuinely presents to those who read them. Every Wednesday is Christmas to somebody in a way, shape, or form. But the true gift that we've gotten is the unbridled support from you guys who have been watching major previews, who have been following Comic Book Click, who have been listening to the Major Issues podcast. All these things that we do as labors of love for free, absolutely free, because we love doing it, and we are hoping that there are other people out there who connect with this kind of stuff the same way that we do. So I want to thank, as we finish out this last episode of the year, I want to thank everyone who has supported us. I want to thank you, Cog, for this was basically your idea to tackle this video series in general. It's made me a better comic book reader. It's made me more in depth of realizing the directions and trends that these publishers are going in on, whether they're the big two or three, if you want to put some other people in that as well. Um, it's given me more an affinity for artists and writers. It's given me more of a ground to stand on with these panels. I know now I can get excited about different stories are to come out because I am aware of where these things have gone and where these writers have gone. This is a gift that keeps on giving, and we give it to you, hoping that you then pass it on to somebody who needs it. Comic books in general, major previews, major issues, all of it. Comic Book Click. Thank you guys for following us thus far. But if you guys want to help us out in any way, shape, or form, consider becoming a Patreon. Patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse is for as little as 10 cents a day, $3 a month. You can help us keep our lights on here and afford the hardware and the software that we need to keep providing you guys content free of charge. And we like doing this, but it would help if I didn't have to then now cook dinner. If I could buy dinner. And get into the next comic, it helps, man. Any of it helps, and once a month donation. So consider doing that, because odds are in that month you will have 4 episodes of the Major Issues podcast for free, and an episode of Major Previews for free, and clips out there for free, and the news and memes across things like Facebook.com/comic book click, Instagram at comic book click, or if you can use the hashtag comic book click to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things that come to comic books and comic book media. We do this again as a labor of love, but we do that hoping that you guys carry this forward. These books don't go anywhere unless we take them off the shelves. So visit your local comic book shop, support your local artists. If you have a friend that likes to draw, you can motivate him to do more. We're turning a corner here. What this company was when we started Major Previews in the beginning is completely different from what this company is now. And it's through the support of you guys and us learning, just like these writers, publishers, and companies in general, what works and what doesn't. So get ready for a brand new era of Major Previews, of Major Issues, of Comic Book Click in general, because we are going to the moon, and we're hopefully taking you with us. But like I said, check out all that stuff. All those links will be in the show notes for how you can reach us on social media and how you can contribute at patreon.com, which means there is nothing else left to say. But my name is George Serrano, aka The Don.
And I'm Alex Garcia, aka The Cog. Happy holidays, all. Celebrate.
And this has been Major Previews for the month of December 2024. Like the Cog said, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. You guys are a gift in general. Share that gift with the world, because the world can become a brighter place because of it. And there's only one thing left to remember at the end of this year, and that is to always remember that you, yes, you, are worthy. Thanks, guys. It's an epic year.